I thought I would record this video because when I found out that I had a daughter with duodenal atresia, I looked online, duodenal atresia without Down syndrome because it's associated with Down syndrome a lot. And I found this video and I saw this lady was talking about it, and it gave me a lot of hope. And I found out with my third child, I was 26 months pregnant, and I was just so big. I felt like, my God, I'm just huge. I don't usually get that big in my pregnancies, but I was just like, I felt like my stomach was in my chest. I was like, oh my God, I don't know why I'm so big. And this is when it pays. I learned this. You know, like, holler if you feel something is wrong, because the OBGYNs that I went to, they were not the ones for my other two kids. I had recently moved to a new area, and they, oh no, you're fine, whatever. No, this is fine. Third baby's always bigger. And I was like, something is wrong. I thought maybe I just had too much liquid. I was like, God, do I have twins or something? Anyway, I went 26. I said, my stomach is too big. It's too big. Something, I don't know what it is, but my stomach is very big. I feel bigger than I should be. And the lady measured, she's like, yeah, you're actually right. I'm going to send you for an ultrasound. So they sent me for an ultrasound. I had two kids. I had a friend visiting. My sister was visiting, like, by a miracle, because normally I was there with my two kids. My husband was working, and I had a 3-year-old and a 1-year-old. So she was there, and I said, oh, I just have to run in. The lady didn't say anything at the ultrasound, and then they called me, the doctor wants to talk to you. And I thought, he's probably going to tell me I have too much liquid, or I have very rough pregnancies. I'm sick the whole time, so maybe he's going to say I need more vitamins, maybe, I don't know, sodium, magnesium stuff. Anyway, he called me in, and he said, look, just so you know, your daughter has duodenal atresia, and that means her stomach is not connected to her intestine. There's lots of different types of blockages. Sometimes it's a blockage, sometimes it's an actual disconnect. And God, I was like, oh my God. And he's like, yeah. He's like, your daughter, you have, and I said, could you be wrong? He's like, I'm absolutely sure I'm not wrong. He showed me there's the classic water bubbles, there's all these kind of things. I'm like, oh my God. Anyway, I was like, okay, he's like, she's gonna need surgery at birth. Like, because she has no way of getting nutrition into her body unless it's like, an IV. And this is not something that's like optional. If she doesn't have this, if she doesn't get this operation, she will not survive. And it's a simple operation. And he's like, often I think it's 40% of the time it's associated with Down syndrome. I had done all my genetic testing because I was over 35. I had done all my genetic testing. So I was like, but they said she didn't have Down syndrome. And anyway, I wasn't freaking out at all. I was like, okay, she's going to need surgery. This is the news that no parent wants to hear. And I think that this is something that I came out of there, and I was like, oh my God, like the thoughts that went through my mind were actually, how am I going to do this? I'm new to the area. I have no family around. I have no close friends. My husband just started a new job. I have 2 small children, very small. And how am I going to go to the hospital and be with my daughter? How long does it take? And, of course, I'm researching away. Some people said 3 weeks. Some people said it took 5 weeks. Anyway, most people had, better. I was there for 7 weeks with my baby. Now she did have, I think she had a little bit of a harder time than other people do, for some reason. But she is perfect now. She's the best eater. She has no stomach problems whatsoever. Certainly no mental problems. She is completely fine. Completely fine. Anyway, if this is their only problem, trust me, your baby will be completely fine. All my other kids had food allergies or something like that. And I was like, oh my God, she had none of that. She is the best. She'll eat beans and fish and avocados. She eats everything right now. She's about to turn 3. And anyway, I found out, and of course, the first thing that everybody tells you is, first of all, oh, don't freak out. that's the worst thing you can do. I was not freaking out. I was more worried, like, how am I actually going to do this? And of course, like, this is not the news any parent wants to hear. You want to hear your baby's fine, and then you hear that your baby's going to need surgery at birth. If not, she will die. And while it's a simple surgery, it still is a surgery. It's still scary. There's a huge risk that your baby's going to be born early. He explained to me that your uterus can burst because of the amount of water that's in there. You're going to need to be monitored much more carefully. And I was thinking, my God, all the hospital, I mean, this is where I was, like, all the hospital visits, how am I going to do with my 2 kids? How will I be able to do this? Anyway, and everybody starts calling you and telling you it's not such a big deal. They flood you with stories about the most horrible birth stories, the most horrible baby that was born without a brain or was born with their heart, I don't know where, and there were no intestines and you know, Down syndrome and missing legs and arms, and you know, as if this is supposed to make you feel better, which of course, if you're going through this, you know that absolutely does not. I get so bothered. Or people research. I know what it says here. I researched. I'm like, yeah. I spoke to a very knowledgeable expert in the field. I know what I'm going into, and I wasn't freaking out. He's like, well, you're very collected, actually. I said, well, I want to know what's going to happen. He's like, we don't know. There's so many possibilities. Depends on when the baby's born, how premature she is. Anyway, it was a huge shock for me because I wasn't expecting this. I was expecting just to go in and, you know, everything's fine, a little more extra liquid. Anyway, the next month I chose to have my baby at CHOP. I live in Pennsylvania, so I chose to have my baby there because it was the only place that I could have my baby, and because they told me you could have it in a normal hospital and they'll take her by ambulance to the children's hospital, and I thought, there's no way I can do that. Like, my God, I'm gonna be so emotional and everything. Anyway, so I chose to have my baby at CHOP. The whole staff there was awesome. I went to start getting my checkups there, because my OBGYNs were like, oh, okay, well, we're just going to treat this as a normal pregnancy. And I'm like, this is not a normal pregnancy for me. It's not. Like, I'm super worried about my baby. I was huge. And because I didn't gain so much weight, I think that they didn't see how big my stomach was. Like, there was not a lot of fat around there, let's say that way. There wasn't a lot of extra weight. So everything was just, I would feel like I was like, and they're like, oh, you're fine. You're just fine. You're just cruising through this. And I was like, I'm not cruising through this. Just because I wasn't complaining doesn't mean I was cruising through this. And that's when I learned. I think complainers get more attention, because I did not complain. I was like, oh, I'm okay. Oh, good, perfect. You're fine. Like, yeah, just come back next week. We'll monitor. And I was like, no, I'm really not fine. And I had pain in my leg, and I found out later that I had a huge blood clot from my knee all the way to my stomach. I didn't find that out after I had my baby, and I ended up in intensive care. But this whole time I was like, something's wrong. No, you're fine. We're just going to treat this like a normal pregnancy. So I was like, that's it. I am not having my baby with these OBGYNs. I am not doing it. I'm sorry. I went to CHOP, and they were completely the opposite. They were extremely kind. They were like, they treated it like, no, this is serious. And I'm like, that's how I wanted it to be treated, because for me it was. I'm like, I didn't trust that they were actually aware of how difficult it was for me to be having this so much water, so much liquid. And of course everybody has the story of, I had twins, I had duodenal treated liquid. I'm like, okay, that doesn't matter. It's difficult for me. I have 2 small children, and this huge, anyway, all that to say that don't anybody minimize it. And I know it's probably one of the most simplest surgeries for a baby. It doesn't take away from the fact that it is so difficult for you as a parent to deal with this. It doesn't matter. Like, it doesn't matter that it's not that they're going to have a heart failure for the rest of the year, or they won't have a working kidney. I know there's a lot worse things. That doesn't take away from how difficult it is. So when I was 32 weeks, I started losing my mucus plug. And I told them, and of course, that's normal. This happens, months before. I knew it wasn't normal. And I was like, something's wrong. This is when I was definitely sure those OBGYNs were not going to be with me in my birth. So they're like, that's normal. So I said, forget it. I'm going to CHOP all the time for my prenatal care, for everything. I was like, I'm losing my mucus plug slowly but surely. And the point was to get the baby as far along as you can, because, that way you have more of it. They have a better chance of thriving. I went there at 32 weeks. No, I was almost 33 weeks. It was almost 33 weeks when I went there. I had the premonition, I'm just going to keep my bag packed at any moment. And there's a thing that they can take out the liquid of your stomach. And I was like, well, I'll ask them to take out the liquid because I think it's just too much. By the time I got there, the lady's like, your membranes are completely, like, they're gone. Like, your membranes was definitely gone by then. And she's like, I'm afraid that you're going to go into labor at any moment now. You're 32 weeks. So, and she's like, so we're going to, anyways, I was hospitalized that night. She's like, we're just keeping you here. You're having contractions. You're not feeling them, but you're having contractions. I'm like, my God, if only all my other births would have been like this, contractions without feeling them. How awesome would that be? But no, I mean, in this case, I wasn't happy. She's like, you need to be complete bed rest. Anyways, I was hospitalized, and they were monitoring the baby, and they were fine. They said, look, at 34 weeks, she could be born. Then that's fine. They gave me steroids and everything for the lungs. And I remember it was a Saturday morning, and I said, okay. They said, okay, now your baby can be born. I stood up and I walked around, and I was like, okay. And then this is my birth story, is that they went there, and they're like, I didn't feel anything. But she's like, oh my God, you're 7 centimeters dilated. And I was like, oh my God, this is going to be the best birth ever. I mean, my God, 7 centimeters without anything. I was induced with my other ones. I was like, my God, this is just, wonderful. I called my husband, who lived an hour away. I'm like, honey, you better get here. He's like, drove, I don't know, thank God there was no police on the road. He would have for sure gotten a ticket, because I don't know how fast he was going. I'm like, honey, it's 7 centimeters. I'm going to hold it in right now. Anyway, I ended up having like a 12-hour thing, because what happens, it was so much pressure. It felt like there was 7, but then baby, I guess she went up again. It was not 7 centimeters. And it was not a painless delivery either. It was a painful one. I said, I want no painkillers or anything. Anyway, they had to give me Pitocin, because they're like, now we need to just get it going. All that to say that it was not an easy birth. It was not an easy birth. I had this image, there's just going to be tons of water that's going to come out, and the baby's going to be, she's smaller, so she's just going to slide right out. Not the case. Not at all the case. It was not an easy birth, but it was, I didn't have any pain. It was, which I actually wish I would have done with my other ones. But anyway, she was born, and I was like, oh my God, she was so tiny and so fragile. She weighed 3 pounds or something, which I know is not, I mean, yes, of course, they come all the births. I know someone of the babies with half a pound and 1 pound, and they survived, and it's still shocking. You see, she was just so small, and I was like, is she going to be okay? Can you take her? So they took her right away, and I went to see her later on, and it was heartbreaking. She had a mask on. She was connected to IVs everywhere. She wasn't breathing well, so they had to put she was just completely hooked up. She had something on her eyes. She had blue lights because she had jaundice. Anyway, I saw her. I was like, oh my God, how am I going to make it through this? Anyway, she didn't have an easy time. They're like, she was so little, and she was so, it was hard for her. So she was there for 7 weeks, and there was a lot of up and downs. I mean, if you would want me to, I could go into detail, but this video would probably be so long. There was sometimes they're waiting for her to poop for I don't know how many days, and they kept on being like, is the bile gone? Is she digesting? The surgery itself went well. She had surgery 2 days after she was born. The surgeon said everything went perfect.